Have you ever wondered how prisons make money? It might sound strange, but prisons are more than just places to keep people locked up. They become very lucrative businesses. From charging inmates for basic needs to partnering with private companies, there's a whole system in place that turns incarceration into profit. In this video, we'll uncover how prisons make money, who benefits from it, and how this impacts inmates and society as a whole. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get regular updates. Let's break it down step by step. The rise of privatized prisons. The story of how prisons became a business model begins with the concept of privatized prisons. Traditionally, prisons were run by the government and funded through taxes. However, over the past few decades, private corporations have entered the prison industry, signing contracts with governments to operate facilities. These corporations, like CoreCivic and Geo Group, have turned incarceration into a for-profit venture. So how does this work? Private prisons are paid by the government based on the number of inmates they house. For these companies, more inmates mean more revenue. This creates a troubling incentive. Instead of focusing on rehabilitation or reducing crime, these companies are motivated to keep their facilities full. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Many private prison contracts include clauses that guarantee a minimum occupancy rate, often as high as 90%. If the prison population falls below this quota, the government may be required to pay the company for the empty beds, which is even crazier. Essentially, taxpayers are footing the bill to ensure these corporations continue to profit even when incarceration rates drop. The rise of private prisons has also led to aggressive lobbying efforts. Private prison companies spend millions of dollars lobbying for policies that increase incarceration rates. This includes supporting tougher sentencing laws, mandatory minimum sentences, and stricter immigration enforcement. The result is a system that prioritizes profit over justice, perpetuating a cycle of mass incarceration that disproportionately affects marginalized communities. Inmate labor. One of the most significant ways prisons generate profit is through inmate labor. Inside prison walls, inmates are often put to work in what can only be described as modern-day slavery. They produce goods, provide services, and perform tasks for a fraction of what it would cost to hire workers outside of prison. In some cases, inmates earn as little as a few cents an hour. This cheap labor force is incredibly appealing to corporations. Companies can partner with prisons to manufacture products or outsource services at a fraction of the cost. Inmates have been involved in making everything from clothing and furniture to license plates. Some even work in call centers, answering customer service inquiries without the caller ever knowing they're speaking to a prisoner. For the companies involved, it's a win-win. They get low-cost labor without having to worry about minimum wage laws, benefits, or workplace protections. But for the inmates, it's a different story. They are often forced to work under the threat of punishment, and the wages they earn are so low that they can barely afford necessities from the prison commissary. What makes this situation even more troubling is that the profits generated from inmate labor rarely go toward improving prison conditions or funding rehabilitation programs. Instead, the money flows to private corporations or state governments, leaving inmates stuck in a system that exploits their labor without giving them a real chance to succeed once they're released. The business of prison services. The exploitation of inmates doesn't stop with labor. Inside prisons, nearly every aspect of an inmate's life comes with a price tag, and someone is profiting from it. Take phone calls, for instance. Staying in touch with family and friends is crucial for inmates, not just emotionally, but also for their chances of successfully reintegrating into society after their release. However, prison phone services are notoriously expensive. Private companies that provide these services often charge exorbitant rates, sometimes as much as $1 per minute. For families who are already struggling financially, these costs can be devastating. Then there's the prison commissary, where inmates can buy basic items like soap, toothpaste, and snacks. These products are often sold at inflated prices far higher than what you pay at a regular store. Since many inmates earn very little from their prison jobs, they rely on their families to cover these costs, placing an additional financial burden on their loved ones. Healthcare is another area where prisons turn a profit. While inmates are legally entitled to medical care, they are often charged fees for doctor visits, medications, or dental work. These fees might seem small, perhaps $5 per visit, but for someone earning pennies an hour, they can quickly add up. Meanwhile, private healthcare companies contracted by prisons often cut corners to save money, leading to substandard care that can have life-threatening consequences for inmates. Even something as basic as food can become a profit-generating opportunity. Many prisons outsource their food services to private companies, which are incentivized to cut costs. This often results in low-quality meals that barely meet nutritional standards. Inmates have reported being served spoiled or undercooked food, which can lead to health problems and further highlight the lack of accountability within the system. The cost to taxpayers. While prisons are raking in money from various sources, it's important to remember that much of the funding still comes from taxpayers. Governments spend billions of dollars each year on incarceration, and in the case of private prisons, they often end up paying more than they would for state-run facilities. Why is this the case? Private prisons are first and foremost businesses. Their goal is to maximize profit, which often means cutting costs in ways that negatively affect inmates and staff. For example, private prisons are frequently understaffed, leading to unsafe conditions and a lack of oversight. They may also overcrowd their facilities, cramming more inmates into cells than they were designed to hold. Despite these cost-cutting measures, private prisons often charge the government more per inmate than publicly run facilities. This means taxpayers are essentially subsidizing a system that prioritizes corporate profit over public safety or inmate rehabilitation. If you've ever wondered why the US has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world, it's not just because of crime. The prison industry has a vested interest in keeping those numbers high. Private prison companies and other industry players actively lobby for laws that increase incarceration rates. This includes supporting policies like mandatory minimum sentences, three-strikes laws, and the war on drugs. While these measures are often presented to the public as ways to ensure safety and order, they also serve to fill prison beds. The more people who are incarcerated, more money flows into the prison system. Lobbying efforts don't stop at the federal level. Private prison companies also target state and local governments, pushing for stricter enforcement of immigration laws and harsher penalties for nonviolent offenses. In some cases, they've even funded political campaigns to ensure that pro-incarceration candidates are elected. A vicious cycle. The prison industry doesn't just profit from current inmates, it also benefits from their return. The lack of meaningful rehabilitation programs and support systems inside prisons means that many inmates leave without the tools they need to succeed in the outside world. With limited job prospects, little money, and often no support network, many former inmates end up reoffending and returning to prison. This cycle of incarceration and recidivism is not only devastating for individuals and their families, but also incredibly profitable for the prison industry. Every time an inmate returns, the system gets another opportunity to profit from their confinement. While it's clear that prisons are a money-making machine, it's crucial to remember that there's a human cost to all of this. Inmates are not just numbers or commodities, they are people. Many come from marginalized communities and have faced systemic inequalities long before they ever ended up behind bars. When prisons prioritize profit over rehabilitation, they fail to address the root causes of crime such as poverty, lack of education, and mental health issues. Instead of helping people turn their lives around, the system keeps them trapped, often in worse shape than when they entered. The impact extends beyond inmates to their families, who often bear the financial and emotional burden of having a loved one in prison. Children of incarcerated parents are particularly affected, facing higher risks of poverty, mental health issues, and future incarceration themselves. Is there a way out? So can this cycle be broken? Many experts believe the answer lies in shifting the focus from punishment to rehabilitation. Programs that provide education, job training, and mental health support can significantly reduce recidivism rates, giving people a real chance to rebuild their lives. There's also growing momentum to abolish private prisons and remove the profit motive from incarceration altogether. If prisons were no longer seen as a business opportunity, there would be less incentive to lock people up unnecessarily and more focus on creating a justice system that truly serves society. The idea that prisons make money might seem shocking, but when you take a closer look, it becomes clear that the system is designed to generate profit at almost every turn. From private prison contracts to inmate labor and overpriced services, the prison industry thrives on keeping people locked up. But this comes at a tremendous cost, not just financially, but also morally and socially. A justice system that prioritizes profit over people fails everyone. It's up to all of us to demand change, whether that means supporting criminal justice reform, advocating for prisoners' rights, or simply staying informed about the realities of the system. Because at the end of the day, prisons shouldn't be about making money. They should be about accountability, rehabilitation, and giving people a second chance. But that's all for now. I hope you have enjoyed watching the video. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more updates. Thanks for watching.